What do you think of One Piece? I think it's mid.
Shut the fuck up in 2024!
Before actually explaining stuff, first, thank you to Arakindo for the idea, so I can steal his content and do it for my own benefit. And second, I get that some of these aren't technically techniques, but come on guys, I'm talking to the Sakutards. It's borderline a technique, okay? So please, 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 dad. Impact frames occur when impact happens, like a punch, explosion, you name it, to fully emphasize it more. It's a more stylized drawing, usually flashing for a couple of milliseconds, but sometimes animators like to draw a crazy number of impact frames. Take this cut by Vincent Tanzard, or this one by Shusugita. Also, animators either tend to draw them black and white, or colored ones, although Yutaka Nakamura usually likes to use them differently compared to what they were meant for. He plays the impact frames more so to make scenes, I guess, flashier, and other animators use it like this too nowadays. I mean, come on, it's Yutapon. Kutsuna Lighting is basically a technique of drawing lightning that moves very zigzaggy. It was created by Kenichi Kutsuna, as you see by the name, same thing. Very big name in the industry, has directed and animated a lot of stuff. Now, it's a more popular technique when it comes to drawing lightning, or maybe the only method of drawing lightning. A lot of webgen animators now also use this method of animating. That's why it's more common and popular now, because nowadays webgen animators are just everywhere, even making the highlights for episodes. Smears are created by stretching and morphing the drawing. It can be used to make the movement more fluid, not like fluid in a way like smooth, but more like to insinuate character movement, make more sense, and to convey speed. That's also a good way. Or some people can pause it and say, bad animation. There's a lot of ways that animators draw smears. Some draw it very spiky like Yutaka Nakamura, or very wobbly like Vincent Tanzard. Of course, there's a lot of other ways. In more western shows / cartoons, they use like after images for smears. Cubic debris is, the name says it, when debris are cubes. Yep. That's it. Next one is a stylistic choice just for visual pleasurement, and maybe that's just how the animator likes to draw debris. Of course, this is a more unrealistic way of drawing debris, but who really cares? It looks cool. You know, in a more realistic matter, you can draw them like chunks, big cracks, but it's anime, so you gotta give it that oomph sometimes so that it's more bombastic. I think a good example is with Hiroto Nagata that uses cubic debris quite a bit. But wait, isn't cubic debris the same thing as another thing? That's the next one? Well, not really. Yutapon cubes and cubic debris aren't the same thing. To be honest, you can call Yutapon cubes cubic debris, but in a technical sense, Yutapon cubes are more timing dependent. There's a big emphasis on the hold and release, where for cubic debris, it just flies around everywhere without any sense of timing. The usage of Yutapon cubes was popularized by Yutaka Nakamura. There's like the first, second, third time I already mentioned him. He drew debris like this because he believed that it was easier to draw, because cubes are easy to draw with different perspectives, and he was inspired by other animators that use this type of debris, one of them being Satoru Utsunomiya. He uses this technique way back, and again, it's very popular among webgen animators. If you don't know what webgen animators mean, it's basically a quote-unquote generation of animators that draws digitally, and more so got into the anime industry with a portfolio of animation, and like in Twitter, they get contacted from producers. They also progress really fast. Now they're some of the big names in the industry, animating or directing in big name shows. Rotoscoping is basically tracing over live action footage or CG models. While sometimes people don't like the usage of rotoscope because it might look a bit too uncanny and realistic, which I don't get that statement because there's animators that their work gets called rotoscoping, but it's not, like Takashi Honda, Keisuke Kobayashi, Myon, and a lot more. You still need talent to trace the live action footage to anime because the proportions are different. You're not gonna have someone like Sukuna IRL that has the same proportions at... Okay, I might be wrong. You still need to draw the character's hair, build in mind. There's still good examples of good usage of rotoscoping. It is still a hard process to do because you are most of the time drawing more frames for it, and it's basically to map out the movements and perspectives alone. Ufotable uses a lot of CG to map out scenes, but still, if you see the CG, most of the time it's very rough layout of just stick figures maybe. An example for live action rotoscoping used a lot is Sungwoo Park's God of High School. They use a lot of them so that the fights look more fluid and the choreography is better. I mean, Sungwoo Park can animate as good as that, but if you don't have time to finish the work, rotoscoping can look bad. I mean, take this shot in Ninja Kamui. Kanada Style animation is a style where there's a lesser amount of drawings with very aggressive poses and perspectives. It was created by Yoshinori Kanada, one of the most influential animator. He created this style because he wanted to do more work in a not so good of a schedule for shows, so he came up with animating scenes with lesser amount of drawings but still have that flair to it, giving him more ample time to animate more stuff. But of course he animates normally when there's more time in like movies. This style is still very popular, animators getting inspired with this type of animation. I mean, if you're talking about style slash inspo with animators, there's Norio school animators, Yutapon inspired animators, Shinro Oihira style animators, and a lot more. The most popular examples when it comes to Kanada style are Yoshimichi Kamada, Toshiki Sato, Kai Igarashi, etc. There's even studios that their animation philosophies is based on Kanada style. Back then we had Gainax with that, but after a couple of Gainax staff left to make Trigger, now Trigger is the powerhouse when it comes to Kanada style animation. Even studios like Sansaro, it's kind of almost like Kanada style. It's basically Kanada style, but not to the extent of Trigger. And you can find some of the best Kanada style animators that solely work for the studio and sometimes do freelance work. Oh, Shinji, this is not a technique, it's a category. Shut up. Background animation is where the animator actually draws the background. Not only that it's time consuming, it's very hard to do because you need to understand depth and perspectives. Usually if you see background animation, the colors are more simplified. There's two other background usage, that is illustrator backgrounds and CG backgrounds. Sometimes the animator only animates a certain background, like the floor, and the rest is an illustrated background. Nowadays, CG backgrounds are more and more common because of how the industry works, now giving shitty deadlines. Even if there's still animators that are capable of animating large amount of background animation, even in a horrible schedule, but now CG backgrounds are getting better and it's easier, of course. Of course, there's exceptions. Itano Circus is a name where a character, he could be controlling a mecha or jet too, dodging or getting pursued by a bunch of projectiles. It could be missiles, lasers, tentacles, kinky, even chains, and more. The creator Ichiro Itano first used this style of shot in an episode of Densetsu Kyojin Ideon? Wait, Kyojin? Hence the name Itano because the animator's name, and circus, maybe because it looks like a circus, I don't know. It was popularized in 1982 with the series Super Dimension Fortress Macross. While back then it's mainly used in mecha shows since there's a lot of missiles in them. Now it's seeping into other genres of anime and even in mainstream shows like JJK. Character acting is a category of animation, but shh, don't tell anyone. Character acting is characters acting. It's a lesser, more appreciated thing compared to like action. I'm not talking about every time characters move. No, this is not character acting. This is character acting. There's more to it. Whether it's facial expressions, movement, there's a lot of subtleness to it. Take the Umehara line in Cloverworks. Their shows are filled with amazing character acting. Even animators tend to say character acting is the hardest thing to do because you have to take in mind the characteristics of the person you're animating. Of course, action needs a higher bar to have in your show. There's a lot of style that animators animate character acting. It could be in a very fluid manner, very exaggerated, or even low frame count. Kagenashi or Zenkage is a technique meaning shadowless. It's a style where shadows are non-existent. It's mostly used either for a visual style or making things less complicated. If your characters move a lot more, it's gonna take more time for the animators to draw the lines of the shadows and the coloring department to color those things. A very popular example is with Naruto Shippuden. The colors were very one-dimensional so that the drawing can move more. Clearly it works. Some of the most popular fights have Kagenashi. Also, there's Norio school animators take very big inspiration from Norio Matsumoto that disregard the overall visual quality so that the movement can be very fluid. Of course, I'm not saying it's easier technically. Shadows are there to convey depth that leads to very detailed drawings, but in the Kagenashi style, you don't have shadows for that. So mostly the animators have to focus on either the line work or how they draw the characters. Ebata Walk is a distinct style of a walk cycle. The inventor Ryuma Ebata, a very talented animator, mostly focusing on character acting animation, but can do action really good too. He's also well known for being the character designer for Slime and likes to solo key animate direct and storyboard openings slash endings. He has a very bouncy style of character acting, so his famous Ebata Walk is for the bounciness and swagginess of the walk cycle, with very good subtle details like the hand swinging, the expression, and hair animation. He also makes the characters very angular shaped, like Kanada Style, but not really. It's in a more fluid nature, so it's easier to draw. Umakoshi Eye is structured of a cut that gives a lot of emphasis on the eye. You usually can zoom into the eye in the various angles. It was made by Yoshihiko Umakoshi, a veteran animator, and now he's mostly known for being the character designer in My Hero Academia. It's a quite common storyboarding technique, or it could be the animator that adds the Umakoshi Eye. Usually it's used for when some sort of projectile, maybe like a laser, coming close to a character's face. Coming close? Wait a second. Or when a character is charging up a punch, then zooming into the eye. Timing is a more broader technique that animators should have a good grasp on. It's one of the most important aspects when animating, mainly to convey more impact or strikes. There's a lot of stuff it could do, either if it's in the action department or the character acting. The previous thing I discussed, Kanada Style, is lesser amount of drawing, but it can still convey everything that a higher amount of frames can do. I'm talking also about when to slow down cuts or speed up cuts to maybe emphasize speed, strike, or just a better way of structuring your sequence. In animation, there's animating in ones, which is 24 FPS, 2s, which is 12 FPS, and 3s are 8 FPS. I don't know if I can find an example of a sequence animated in 4s. Editor me, did you find any? Yes. Can you cut to the next part? It's the amount of frames slash drawings in a single second. Usually most of the time shows tend to animate in 2s, but when the big moments hits, animators tends to draw them in different frames. Take Nozomu Abe, he likes to animate in 1s or a mix of 1s and 2s. There's also a thing called in-betweenings. It's basically filling in the gaps left by the key animator. If you don't know the process of animating a scene, there's the storyboard, then an animator does the rough layout, key animation slash Genga work, then in-betweening slash doga work, and the other stuff too, like coloring and compositing. There's also notes by the key animator about the timing and spacing for the scene. In the industry now, usually most of these are by different people. It's best that these three components should be by the same person. Take Daniel Kim. Even in the worst managed production, JJK Season 2, his cuts still look amazing and fluid because those three stuff are by him. I think good and bad in-betweenings can also be a factor, because if the Dogaman is missing, like in Windbreaker, then it will look pretty choppy. Of course, animating in a higher frame count doesn't mean it can like convey speed better. No, that's why timing and a lot of other aspects are very important, like poses is important too. Obari Punch is mainly a punch where it usually goes to the camera. It was invented by the animator Masami Obari, and it first appeared in the anime Fight Icarus 1? Fight Ixer 1? The common movement that occurs so that it can be named Obari Punch is the initial pose, a pulling back of the punching arm, a thrusting chest and head tilt, and finally the punch itself towards the camera. There's a lot of variations of it, could be also with weapons in a rare occasion, or can be structured differently, but that's the common movements that can be labeled Obari Punch. That's all of it. There's a lot of more techniques, maybe. I mean, I could milk out 15 more for part 2 if this video does well. I try to include more of the interesting ones. Well, yes, it's good to learn some of these stuff, but some of the techniques are very simple to explain, and I don't think there's not much enjoyment to watch that. But anyways, if you guys like this video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a like. Comment down below what your thoughts about some of these techniques, whether you didn't know about them or not. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys next time.